Hello everybody and welcome back to Fitman Aquatic. So, here's going to be our first fitness video. I was planning on doing a workout today, didn't have time to get to the gym, so just going to do one here, and I thought, you know what, why not include everyone else in kind of a tutorial video on shoulder exercises you can do at home. Now, of course, a lot of these exercises will translate smoothly into the gym, either using bands or dumbbells, which are the two, I guess, forms of workouts that I'll be using. Probably a better way to say that, but whatever. Anyway, you can use these in the gym, or if you're reluctant enough to have a barbell, some of these can be done with a barbell. But I'm just going to walk through all of them, and then maybe in a later video I can show you kind of a split or a full workout, what it would look like for me at home, because normally I would split this with probably triceps and finish off with abs, but we're not going to go into that today. That's a whole separate 2 different videos, so we're just going to focus on shoulders today, and I'll kind of give you some advice, hopefully you guys can hear this and see this. I know that the lighting in here isn't great, and I had to bring a fan in because there's a bunch of bugs in here, so apologies for that. But without much further ado, let's get started, and I'll kind of just talk through everything as best I can and give you some tips and advice, or different ways, alternative ways of doing these exercises to figure out what works best for you. All right. Anyway, now hopefully you can see me and hear me well enough as I'm demonstrating these exercises. You'll probably be wondering what this is. This is actually a hernia belt, since I do have a small umbilical hernia. I use this kind of as a protection, so it doesn't get much worse. It does seem to work out very well. So at least on very heavy exercises, things like bent over rows as well as squats and deadlifts, I do definitely recommend everyone using a weight belt. After knowing what I know now, I think it's probably the best way to avoid getting an umbilical hernia, which in the weightlifting world can be surprisingly common. The wrist straps, I just recommend people have these. Maybe in this week's live stream I'll go through items that I would recommend you owning or thinking about getting for your benefit when it comes to weightlifting. But anyway, the wrist straps to help with wrist support. So, the first one we're going to be going through is going to be a dumbbell front raise. So, this one, I will be using 25-pound dumbbells. There's a few variations to it. So the most common one is going to be with your overhand grip, I guess you would call it. I like to wrap my thumb around. I think that makes it more challenging on the front. Oh my goodness. Your front deltoid. Thank you. So frontal deltoid. And what you're going to do is basically raise it up forward. You don't have to put your thumb like mine is. You can wrap it around if you find that more comfortable or easier to do. But basically raising up to about the nipple line, holding it for a second, bringing it back down. Now, you can also do a raise that's more like a hammer curl, if you all are familiar with that. But basically, it's a straight up and down, where you can raise it, again, nipple line, try and hold it for a second, and then bring it back down. Or you can do the inverted, which is basically underhand grip, same concept. You're going to bring it to nipple line. Now this one you're probably going to be at more of like a 45-degree angle on your wrists. So let's see if I can try and slowly demonstrate that. It may be hard from your angle, but basically you want to front raise it up to about the nipple level. Trying to turn your wrist too far is going to strain your wrist. So that one I find I can lift the weights, lift higher weights and more reps, but it does put a lot of strain on the wrist. I feel like overhand is the lightest or easiest on the wrist, hammer, underhand. That's how I would describe it to anyone. The overhand is going to be the hardest one on your front deltoid. The underhand, again, I think if you're trying to push more weight and lower reps, then that might be your best option. Now this is another very good one you can do with an easy curl bar or a straight barbell. If you have one of those are great options. I just unfortunately don't have one because I don't possess the space for one. Alright, but that's a dumbbell front raise. So we're going to move on to a dumbbell lateral raise. Now there's two different ways you can do this. The first one being you can basically one arm raise it, that I will show you with cables, but you will get it'll be the same concept for dumbbells. The other, which I am going to do because it is much more comfortable on my shoulders as I have very bad shoulders, will be kind of a 90-degree angle and you raise it sideways. You may see machines in the gym that have that. I do like that machine a lot actually as a lateral or medial deltoid exercise. So basically arms 90-degree angle, wrists going to be straight like a hammer, and your focus is not to move your not to move your elbows, but to move your shoulder itself. Try and keep that 90-degree angle as best you can. So if you start to fall either with your wrist or with your elbows flaring, it may be best to go down in weight as you don't want to hurt yourself. So 90 degrees, bring it up sideways, back down. Again, it doesn't need to be all the way a perfect 90 degrees high up, because one, you will flare your shoulders or flare your elbows, which can hurt them. As well, it can increases the likelihood of you dislocating your shoulder. I'm telling you from experience, don't do it. So basically, you want to go, I'd say almost 70 degrees and bring it back down. Almost till like you can bring these dumbbells right up to the nipple line. Again, the nipple line is going to be very important in figuring out how your range of motion. So that's a simple lateral raise. Again, 90 degrees is your biggest focus. You want to raise with your elbow. Try not to flare that, or raise with your shoulder. Try not to flare that elbow up or down. If that's happening, probably need to go down in weight. And your wrist straps, they will help a lot with this. That's why I do recommend them for an exercise like this, because this can be a little tough on the wrists since you're holding that hammer-like position as you rotate. But if your wrists start to fall, you may also want to go down in weight. So the next one we'll do is a dumbbell bent over row. So let me get a bucket so that I have something to kind of lean over. Now normally you could use a chair or a bench. I just have buckets on hand because that's doing from working on water changes. Anyway, it's going to be a simple, the concept is really a reverse fly kind of idea. You're just in the bent over fashion, so that way you can focus on your rear deltoid, or I believe it's your anterior is your front, posterior is your back. I believe so. If you need the technical names, there's very educated people, Dr. Jim Stepani, Chris Gethin, I mean, the list goes on and on, that can give you all the technical names for all of them, but I do believe it's anterior, medial, and posterior. Okay, moving on, bent over rows. So, again, you want it to kind of be a reverse fly motion that you would normally be making up here, on a machine or possibly on a cable that I will show you in a minute. But with the dumbbell, some people really like this, is that you're bent over. You have the dumbbell starting usually between your legs. You kind of want to swing it out. Again, not 90 degrees. You're going to hurt yourself if you do that. You want it about 70 degrees, and you want to bend the elbow a little bit. Do not try and keep it straight. That can be very straining. So I keep a little bend in my elbow. But you can see at 25 pounds, this is pretty tricky for me. So be very gentle with it. But that's pretty, it can be a little weird at first because it's a kind of odd position to be in. But again, just try and think of it like doing a reverse fly on one of those machines that you kind of pull apart this way, which is a perfectly good way. Some of them are okay. I prefer some more than others. I'm a big fan of using cables when working on my posterior deltoids. I like the machines for my medial deltoids because I feel they less risk of injury, but cables also work very well. And then for the front raise, I quite often will either do dumbbells or easy bar front raises are my favorites, but sometimes you got to mix it up with some one arm exercises, so that's where I will often do cables as like a one arm front raise. So with all that, is it raining? Looks like it's raining. Let's break into the cables. Now I'm going to be using like your generic rope cable contraption. It wraps around a door. There's several loops here, and you can attach your cables to it with multiple handles. I think all of this together was maybe $75. So if you're really still not comfortable with going out to the gym, which I completely understand, you may want to consider, if you can, investing in this, because you can get a very good at-home workout, and it's not that expensive. Plus you can get 50, 60 pounds on there, so you still can get a decent amount of weight. So that's why I'm going to go through it with this, so you could possibly imitate it at home, or if you went into the gym, you could use cables to do these similar exercises. Pretty easy to figure out how you would do that. The translation would be very simple. Alright, so the front raise, again, you want your arm kind of by your side. You can do underhand grip, you can do overhand grip, you can use a little ball, you don't have to use anything. All of these are good options for doing a front raise, but normally I will do overhand grip. Again, I find it works the deltoid very well. But anyway, so slight bend in your elbow, and again, we're shooting for that nipple line level. Now keep in mind, one thing you have to get used to with cables is as you pull it further away, it does get much tougher. So that very end is going to be the absolute hardest part. Now you also can do it underhand, something like this. Again, slight bend. I might even do a bit more of a bend on the underhand grip, but still going right for that nipple line. Keep eyes straight ahead. I know I've been looking at you all, but you want to focus off into the distance. Have that 1,000-yard stare, if you guys are familiar with that term. But basically, off in the distance, keep your back straight for all of these exercises. The bent over rows included. It can be a lot easier if you have like an actual bench or something for those, but I don't, so I just make do with a bucket, which, if that's all you got, you work with what you got. Anyway, so now we are going to go into the front raises, we just did front raises. The lateral raises. which is going to vary. You can either grab it like this. I prefer actually no handle on this, so that I can do work on my grip strength, and I think it helps keep that wrist in line, whereas people will tend to twist their wrist or torque it, which can cause an injury if you're not being careful. So this is one of those exercises where I think actually either a little ball on the end here, which hopefully you all can see, on the end here, or none at all is my ideal option when doing one arm cable lateral raises. Hopefully you guys can go back through this video, hear all of the names, look them up, or just hopefully this video is good enough that you can get the information you need and continue on with your life. But I'm a little worried about the lighting and the noise and everything. It's just a tough room to film in. So anyway, moving on. One arm cable lateral raise. Again, your focus is to, I like almost a 45-degree angle. Of course, keep your elbows slightly bent, but that 45-degree angle, and hold it for a good second or two, so that way you feel a nice burn in that medial deltoid. Now this is another tough one. 25 pounds is still pretty tricky for me. So you may want to go lower, or maybe I'm just a wuss and I'm not going high enough, but you can also do it like an overhand grip to pull out and keep the focus there. Is just make sure your wrist doesn't start to fall. Generally people's wrist will start to droop down, and you don't want that. That can hurt your wrist. So that's why I like the straight hammer side, because it's unlikely that your wrist is going to bend too much. And those wrist wraps will help a lot with that. But a simple lateral raise out to the side. Again, mine's only like 45 degrees, but that you can still really feel the burn. If you want a slightly longer range of motion, which I don't necessarily believe will make a ton of difference because you're still working the muscle just as hard, you may want to drop down the weight a little bit. And now the last we will be doing with at least this contraption, and then I'll show you some exercises you can do with just the bands themselves to hopefully, if you can't afford the whole set, a pair of bands I think is like $35 maybe, and that way at least you can get that option. But the last thing we're going to do is the reverse fly, one arm cable reverse fly, or cable one arm reverse fly. Anyway, again, it's that reverse fly motion. You're going to kind of bring the cable out, elbow bent. My wrist does have a slight bend in it, I will admit, but if it does turn a little, it's not too bad. If it starts like really aching or turning a lot, you may need to go down and wait. Now with a cable machine in the gym, this can be a little bit easier, but I do find this is a pretty good workout still at home with just these bands. So basically, reverse fly, try and keep that wrist straight, elbow slightly bent, and I basically do 90 degrees. So right out in front of me, directly back. So that way you're getting a nice range of motion and really working that posterior deltoid or rear deltoid. Now, some of you may have noticed I have not talked about the military press. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I'm going to use my handy dandy bucket. A military press is basically your simple straight up and down. I apologize for the body hair, but I need to shave, and that's just life. But a military press is straight up and down. Generally, you'll see it with a barbell, or some people like to do it with dumbbells. I do not personally do it anymore because it has a very high likelihood of dislocating your shoulder. After I was told that, basically nothing above the nipple line is an exercise you should be doing because it puts your shoulder in a bad position. So basically this is your cone of protection in terms of shoulders. There are, you know, some differences when it comes to that, like pull downs and things where it's tight to your body, and even still your hand should still be about at that nipple line to start. So the military press is a very good front deltoid exercise, and simple motion, basically arms out in front of you, raising up. Some people like to bring them together when they're doing it. I still caution you, be very, very careful with that exercise. It can help build big shoulders, but it can also become a serious injury problem in the future that will haunt you. Believe me, I can promise it. And so for that reason, I would try and avoid it. I think there's plenty of other good front deltoid exercises out there that you can build huge shoulders without doing an exercise that puts you at a very high level of injury or risk of injury. All right, but the last one the last few we're going to go through, again, this is not one that I would necessarily condone. So what it is another, basically a military press. Bucket. Stubborn. Okay, but basically it's still a military press. You can put some handles on the end of these, but I'm not, because I'm not going to do a lot of them. But you basically raise the cable up to the ceiling, and the tension basically is underneath your feet. You step on the cable, and that is going to be your tension point. But be very careful because, one, this is an over the nipple line exercise, and two, 10 pounds, the line will get very taut because I'm short and the line gets very taut for me. So that is something to be careful of. It may be very hard to get that full range of motion. So I'm not sure I would necessarily recommend that. Personal opinion. Anyway, one other exercise you can do, this can be done overhand or underhand, but it is a pull apart. This is actually one I really like to do as a warm-up exercise to help strengthen or warm up that shoulder muscles, that shoulder girdle area, if you will. But basically you can use this as a rear deltoid exercise that you just pull the band. As the name implies, it's like a rear delt fly. And you don't need any of those other contraptions. So this is another exercise you can do if you needed to at home without using the cable exercise. You can also do just a simple front raise. Put a little handle on this, and you can do front raises with these cables. You just stand on them. It's not the most ideal because the point of tension isn't great. So you may not feel it too much. It's not ideal, but again, it is a usable exercise. You could put it actually behind, put it under your butt and do front raises that way. That might even be a little bit better if you're comfortable with doing that, or if it doesn't irritate you or rub or anything like that. So that's one. The lateral raise, however, is much easier to do. You can basically just lateral raise out, put your feet down over the cable, and you can always adjust the length of your feet as well as the cable weight to increase intensity to make the exercises more difficult. All right, everyone. So that about does it for all the exercises off the top of my head that I can run through. Hopefully those 9 different exercises, 10 different exercises, something like that, you can do at home with just dumbbells, cables, and that door doodad over there. All options for various people. Again, if you have questions about any of these exercises, hopefully you can see this a little okay. But if you have any questions about the exercises, please feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will be happy to get back to you and hopefully explain it to you as best I can, or possibly even put it in a future video. If you found this video educational or somehow enjoyable, give a like, it's greatly appreciated. And if you like this video and thought, you know, I could learn a lot, or I still do want to exercise but I'm not comfortable, but I've got a little bit of money I can spend on some supplies, then maybe consider subscribing, because I will be doing more of these videos basically for every muscle group that I can think of, and then possibly even start getting more in depth. And like I said, I hope to be doing some basically split day exercises where I will go through my routine, either time lapse it or speed it up a little bit for you all, and have some music or something, I don't know, but just so you can watch the flow of how I exercise, and how I would do a split day of, say, shoulders, triceps, and maybe even some abs or yoga or something at the end. So if you're interested in things like that, a subscribe will help keep you up to date on all of these videos that I hope to keep putting out. And then the weekly live streams every Sunday, it's looking like as of right now, but we'll see, that could be liable to change. Otherwise, questions, comments, leave them down below. I hope this video is going to turn out okay, that I can, you know, put it out to you all. But if it's utter garbage and you can't see anything and the lighting's terrible and blah blah blah, then I may just have to redo it. So I guess the future will see this. Yeah, I think that's about all I got. So live stream this Sunday should be 10 o'clock. And I hope to see you all there. I think we're going to redo the macro video because it wasn't very good, and I have a pretty good idea of what I can do, but we'll see if it works out. Alright, until next time, take care.